could hear me as well as see the Google Slides presentation, can you please type 1 in the chat? Okay, great. And let me go ahead and send in the link so everyone can join into the Google Slides. We'll get started with the vocab first. Liam, can you go ahead and read the first word?
Epiphany, noun, a sudden intuitive leap of understanding, often with credit given to divine inspiration. A sudden manifestation of the essence or meaning of something, a revelation. Seemingly miraculously circumstances, such as an unexplained recuperation from serious illnesses, often lead a person to an epiphany regarding the blessings of life.
Okay, and Kevin, can you go ahead and read the second word?
Equanimity, noun, even temper and calm, usually displayed under stress, composure in a difficult situation. Equanimity is a quality to be revered and one that can be taught, practiced, and perfected.
Okay, and Nathan, can you go ahead and read the third word?
Equinox, either of 2 days in a year when the sun crosses the celestial equator and day and night are approximately equal. The vernal equinox occurs in the spring and the autumn equinox occurs in the fall.
Okay, yeah. And again, just to make sure it would be a little bit more of an E sound at the start, so equinox. And Liam, can you go ahead and read the last word?
Eradicate, verb, destroy, get rid of, or do away with utterly, to wipe a thing out, leaving no sign so it cannot recur or return. It is the greatest hope of many medical researchers to eradicate cancer within the next 20 years.
Okay, great. So for this activity, I want everyone to write a sentence using each of the following words. Make sure to include enough context. You can also write it in the form of a paragraph oriented around the same topic. So we'll work on this activity for 5 minutes. And this time around, not everything's on the same slide. It is on 2 different slides. So if you do want me to go up or down, please let me know. I would also recommend everyone uses the link in the chat to join into the Google Slides. Okay, Alex, I see that you joined in as well. Let me go ahead and send the link into the chat. We just went over 4 words over here: epiphany, equanimity, equinox, and eradicate. If you have questions about any of these words, feel free to ask me. And let me also make sure you have a slide before we begin. Again, I just want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to ask any questions they have right now. So again, any questions about any of the words, please let me know. But otherwise, I guess we'll go ahead and proceed with proceed with the writing time for this activity. Again, Alex, I'm not sure if you caught the instructions, but I want you to write a sentence using each of the following words. Make sure to include enough context to show the understanding of the word. You can also write it in the form of a paragraph oriented around the same topic. So right now the time is about 7:05. We'll work on this activity until 7:10. And I'm just going to start off on this slide, and then maybe halfway through, I'll go on to the second slide. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me at any point. Alex, I just want to clarify with your question. You have the option to either type into the chat or onto the slides, whatever is easier for you. But yeah, that's practically it. You can send your responses into the chat or directly type onto the slides, but just make sure your responses are sent in by 7:10. Liam, can you go ahead and read your response?
The sudden discovery of the cure led to an epiphany. Quantity is used to calm down and relieve stress. The equinox is going to happen tomorrow. We eradicated all pests from our home.
Okay, great. And just wanted to go over the word equanimity. It would technically be incorrect because it's not something you use, it's a state you have. Even if we go back over here and we read the sentence example, equanimity is a quality to be revered that one can be taught, practiced, and perfected. Again, they're kind of describing a state of mind. So when you do write equanimity is used to calm down and relieve stress, it's not exactly something that's being used, for example, like meditation, because meditation is something you can use to calm down and relieve stress. But maybe through meditation, you can reach a state of equanimity. So maybe you could reword that a little bit around, and that would make sense. So I'm just going to make that correction over here. I mean, I'm just going to make this red so you know it's a correction. And Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response?
Epiphany. He suddenly epiphanied the rules of chess. Equanimity. Equanimity is a very important quality for someone who is constantly under pressure. Equinox. The autumnal equinox is on September 22nd. The erectation. The erectation of global warming would change the world.
Okay, so it's just the first sentence I want to go over. Epiphany is used as a verb. I mean, in this sentence, it's used as a verb. He suddenly epiphany the rules of chess, but it is a noun, so we do have to be careful in how we use it. Instead, you could write something as simple as, okay, this one it's a little bit simpler to make a correction, so we'll just go over this together since we don't have to change the context. We could just write, okay, we'll keep suddenly in there as well. We'll just write this. He suddenly had an epiphany while reading the rules of chess or while studying the rules of chess. But I do understand what you were trying to say. It's just you used it as a verb when it should be a noun. Okay, and Nathan and Alex, it is 7:11 1 minute past the take-up time. I'm still waiting on the responses from the both of you, so please make sure you send them in. Oh, okay, and Alex pasted in here as well. Thank you. Alex, can you go ahead and read your response?
Just as I was about to fail the exam, I had an epiphany and remembered some of the facts I had just learned.
Okay, great. So one thing I would suggest, this word is used correctly, but within the given time, you should be able to write more sentences. So I'm just going to write here, work on writing more with provided time. A minimum of 3 of the words from the lesson should be used. Okay, and Nathan, can you go ahead and read your response?
His dog gave him an epiphany. It showed him equanimity. It was during the equinox. Nothing was erratic.
Okay, so it's really just the first part that's a little bit incorrect. It really doesn't make sense with the dog giving an epiphany because, again, an epiphany is almost a moment of realization. It's not something a dog can give. Maybe if you were writing something about the dog, for example, buying the dog was able to give this angry old man a moment or like an epiphany because suddenly he was able to have an understanding of what it feels to have compassion and love. I'm just thinking about how you can add it into that context, but a dog itself cannot give epiphany as if it is an object, since it is an abstract idea. And in general, especially with the last 3 sentences, I feel as if context, even though the words are used correctly, there really isn't enough context to show that you have an understanding of the words. So make sure to improve the context, especially with the last 3 sentences, to show your understanding of each of the words. Okay. And before I move on to the next activity, does anyone have any questions about what we went over? All right. We're just going to be reading about these 3 rhetorical devices. They're fairly simple, and yeah, I don't think it should be too hard to use. Based off this, we're going to be writing a speech related to being a valedictorian. A valedictorian, for example, would be the representative of a graduating class. So, or even if you consider yourself to be a representative of your class right now, for example, the speech can work out. But to be specific with the context we're going into, a valedictorian is someone that's chosen during graduation to represent that graduating year and to give a speech to talk about their experience as like whatever year it might be. For example, like if it's those graduating in 2025, it would be someone chosen to represent them and to talk about what it means to be a student at that time at that school. So I want everyone to use the 3 literary devices we're going to be going over through their speech. We'll get into more instructions after, but let me go over the 3 literary devices first. The first one is apophysis. This is a way to draw attention to something by either denying it or seemingly ignoring it. For instance, I wouldn't want to, excuse me, I'm sorry. I wouldn't want to talk to him about being sacked from his previous job. Revealing that would be unfair. And again, if you look over here, they're trying to draw attention to something by either denying it or seemingly ignoring it. In this case, more ignoring it. Again, if we read the sentence, I wouldn't want to talk to him about being sacked from his previous job. Revealing that would be unfair. So they kind of talk about how they don't want to talk about this topic and just have it be ignored. Aporia. Aporia is a statement often in the form of a question, of real or pretend doubt. It is generally used where the speaker or writer wishes to address the audience's questions on a matter. The author can then go on to answer the doubt and gain authority through assuaging fears. For example, will this merger be good for everyone concerned, or will it lead to major restructuring that will incur job losses. So in a way, there is kind of a statement being made, right? Even if you look at the last part, when they kind of do ask that question, it's pretty obviously a statement. Of course, this person who's speaking does not think the merger is going to be good for everyone. They most likely think that this will lead to job losses. And we see that in the way they structured it, even though it is in the form of a question. So it's almost as if it's pretend doubt. And the final one is asyndeton. The use of asyndeton is to leave out conjunctions between phrases and sentences, such as and, but, or bit, or if. But it also maintains some level of grammatical correctness. It is often used to create rhythm and speed. How would our service benefit your organization? Increase your efficiency, attract your ideal clients. So what we see over here, especially with the last two questions, even though they're written as individual questions, if we really look at this without any context, it's going to be hard to understand. If we just read increase your efficiency with the question mark at the end, we're going to be left confused as to what exactly are they talking about, increase your efficiency in relation to what. But in the context of this, since this is an asyndeton, we're able to understand it. We're able to read the first sentence or first question where it states, how would our service benefit your organization? And then when we read increase your efficiency, attract your ideal clients, it's able to make sense. But we do see the lack of the obvious conjunctions that you might have in there. For example, would it increase your efficiency and attract your ideal clients? So those conjunctions missing is what makes this an asyndeton. So I know this is a little bit more on the complex side compared to the other literary devices we took a look at, but it's not something that's as important. But we would find ourselves as we start to become better and better writers, even with or without intending to, we would find ourselves using more literary devices like this within our writing. So just kind of having an idea of knowing what you're writing about, knowing the tools you're using, it just makes it easier to become a better writer. So having taken a look at these three literary devices, does anyone have any questions at all? Okay, and I really do recommend that now would be a great time to ask me questions because we don't have much more of a lesson left after this. I'm just going to introduce the writing activity, and most likely we're going to work on this until 7:30. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce the instructions. So I want you to write a graduation speech pretending you are the valedictorian of your grade. Address your teachers, peers, and friends in your speech. Use and identify the three rhetorical devices mentioned above. And we'll work on this activity again, as I mentioned, it's about 7:20. We'll work on this until 7:30. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm going to also be checking in halfway through the activity. Again, any questions at any point, feel free to ask me. Okay, the time is 7:25, but I did realize, especially for this activity, even compared to the other ones, it might require a little bit more time since we are working on a speech writing activity. So instead of 10 minutes, I'm just going to change this to 15 minutes. It just feels like it makes a little bit more sense. And we are about to hit the half mark. Yeah, we're about to be about 7:27. So that'll still give us, as of right now, about 9 minutes more to work on it. And again, I'm just basing this off what I see written so far. Yeah, I'm just assuming everyone does need a little bit more time. But if I do receive responses earlier, we'll proceed with the take up. Again, I just don't feel like 4 minutes is enough for everyone to finish it, as well as include an example of all three rhetorical devices. Again, if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to ask me as well. Okay, it is 7:36, 1 minute past the take-up time. So we'll go through and start going through the responses. Alex, we'll start off with you. Can you go ahead and read your response?
We gather to celebrate a journey we have all traveled together. We look back at the friendships we built, the lessons we learned, and the challenges we faced. Some might wonder, was it really that long ago when we started this journey? To our teachers, thank you. I won't even mention the countless days we were being noisy and being distracted. Oh, my bad. Or the times we forgot our homework. Because what matters is how you stood by us, believed in us, and helped us grow. To my classmates, we shared so many moments, projects, late night studying, early morning, rushing to school, laughs, setbacks, and victories. Now that we stand ready for the next chapter, some of us might feel excited, some of us feels nervous, and some of us feels a little of both. Will high school be tougher? Will it be more exciting? Will we find paths that we never expected? We will carry with us the lessons, the friendships we made, and everything that brought us here.
Okay, great job with your response. I was just going through the literary devices that were required as well. Just wanted to make sure everything was there. And yeah, I just have some small points of improvement to go through. Starting off with the grammar, just small correction, feels should be feel. In terms of the apophysis, it's strong, but it can be more dramatic with examples. Aporia as well, strong, but you can add more emotional depth. For the asyndeton, I would remove the end in the list for a faster rhythm. In terms of pacing, transition feels abrupt. It could be smoother. And the structure needs a clearer closing statement to end off with. Alex, do you have any questions about the provided feedback?
No.
Okay, great. And Kevin, I'm just going to let you finish up with your last sentence. Liam and Nathan, if both of you can send in your responses as well, that'll be great.
I need maybe a few more minutes. I'm not quite done yet.
It's fine if you weren't completely able to finish. It's just we're 3 minutes past the take-up time, so you could just read what you have done so far. And even if you're not completely done, you could always come back to it for homework after. But as soon as you're done with the sentence, Kevin, you could go ahead and start reading. Okay, Kevin, can you just go ahead and start reading from what you wrote so far?
Who is this kid? Is he giving a speech? Or questions that you could be asking yourself right now. I am Kevin Shea, this year's valedictorian. Today I'm going to tell you my journey during high school as a student and my childhood. I started out at high school as a young ninth grader. I was already thinking about college, so I made a decision that I do not regret. I decided to take 10 AP classes in a semester. It was a mess, and I was always stressed. I always had these sentences on my mind. Is taking a lot of AP classes going or cause me to become mentally unwell? But I managed to break through all the stress and was able to come my freshman year with a good resume and a good mentality. 10th and 11th grade was very simple, except that I wasn't as stressed out. Now I resume the story during this year, my senior year. I was doing very well. I would accomplish everything that I wanted, from a perfect SAT and ACT score to icing on my classes. I got accepted one of many college offers from a college, Princeton. Now I was mostly probably the most successful student in the state. I had to say things like, I don't want to talk about getting offers from every other school to hopefully spark questions from my classmates. Now I wasn't always like this. When I was in third year, somehow failing class, and I never believed I was going to be here today. But I never gave up, and here I am, valedictorian in high school.
Okay, great job with your response, Kevin. And yeah, I do like your overall structure. I'm just going through, just making sure that devices. All right, yeah. I guess I did note it down. Yeah. So I just wanted to go over one of the devices with you as well as some small little points of improvement. But in terms of your grammar, instead of writing mentally unwell, you could write mentally unhealthy. And in terms of pacing, I resume the story is a little bit awkward. You can rephrase that into something a little bit different. Again, the word resume specifically, that's probably what you want to change. In terms of clarity, most successful student might sound arrogant. So you can try and soften it. Again, just coming at it in terms of what makes a good, clear-cut speech. In terms of structure, there are clear transitions needed between high school years. And for the closing, there's an abrupt ending. So in general, I feel like a stronger conclusion is needed, but I know you didn't get the chance to come to that yet. I did actually see you rushing to write the conclusion. So honestly, when you do come back to it, try working a little bit on the ending, maybe around homework time, but I did want to include that in the points. And for asyndeton, it is not used. So you should add a list without end for rhythm. Make sure you do prioritize that. And I'm not sure if you meant, I mean, I'm not sure if you meant to use the other two, but they were used and they were used correctly. So great job in terms of that. And Kevin, do you have any questions about the provided feedback?
No.
Okay. Okay. And Nathan, can you go ahead and read your response?
Now, just standing here looking incredible teachers, my steadfast friends, my amazing peers, it feels a little surreal, doesn't it? It seems just yesterday we were navigating these hallways for the first time, clutching our schedules like lifesavers, a mix of excitement and nervousness swirling within us, and now we are here. To our dedicated teachers, thank you. Thank you for igniting our curiosity, for patiently explaining concept until that little light bulb finally flickered on, and for pushing us to see potential we didn't even know we possessed. You taught us how to think, how to question, and how to learn. You've been our mentors, our guides, and sometimes, let's be honest, our cheerleaders when we desperately need one. The late nights grading papers, the extra help sessions, and the wavering belief in our abilities, none of that went unnoticed. We are truly indebted to your passion and commitment.
Okay. Great job with your response, Nathan. I just wanted to go over some small points of improvement, nothing too serious. Just give me 1 second while I finish typing up this last point. Okay. All right, in terms of pacing, you can smooth out the transition after and now here we are. So after you do get into that phrase, you jump into to our dedicated teachers, thank you. It suddenly feels a little bit abrupt, right? You kind of maybe want to even stick around to explain what being here right now means before getting into that point. And then for the asyndeton, that was the one literary device that was missing. So consider a list without end for added impact. So refer back to slide number 13, and you would be able to see exactly what literary device you were missing. And again, all of you, I'm not sure if you're purposely trying to include the other two literary devices, but as I did mention, a lot of those literary devices are easy to include even without you intending to. And the three literary devices we went into are specific to the ones you would find more likely in speeches. So maybe that's the reason everyone is able to kind of take them off, but asyndeton was missing from this list. And the tone could sound more personal and less formal in places. This is great as it is. It really does maintain a formal attitude for the most part. But at the same time, valedictorian, like when you're a valedictorian, you're also kind of addressing your class as well. So in that case, you can try and make it a little bit more personal, talk about what it personally means to be there in that position as well. And Nathan, do you have any questions about the provided feedback?
No.
Okay, great. And Liam, can you go ahead and read your response?
Hi, my name is Liam, and today I would like to thank all of my peers and teachers for taking me this far. My teachers and peers have done many great things for me, but today I do not have the time to tell you all the stories. But I must ask, how can I thank my teachers? Can I even give back the amount of effort they have put in me? How imaginably much all this would help me in the future. In addition, I must ask if this will be the end of our friendship, or will this be just the beginning? Today will be a day we would all remember together from teachers to peers. I hope all the friendships built from these years will be still remembered to the last few breaths of our lives. I hope all the friendships built from these years will still be will still be remembered to the last breath of our life. Thank you.
Okay, great. And let me just remove this repeat sentence. Okay, just wanted to go over some points of improvement. In terms of the literary devices, just wanted to go over one of them. You did use them, aporia, but it could be more reflective. Try adding deeper emotion to the questioning. In terms of phrasing, how unimaginably much all of this would help me in the future. This needs to be changed, specifically, primarily this word, unimaginably. It just sounds a little bit awkward in this overall sentence. So maybe if you wanted to rephrase it, I would suggest kind of changing the whole first half of the sentence and maybe even keeping the second half about the idea of how this would help me in the future. But think about how you could better introduce that concept. In terms of oh no, I already went over that point. Okay, repetition. I hope all the friendships is, oh, I already removed that. So we'll just go ahead and get rid of that point. And in terms of tone, more personal and less formal would improve the emotional connection. So a lot of this, and again, it really depends on the context of your speeches. So we're not writing an outright political speech where we're addressing completely just primarily adults or anything like that. We're writing a valedictorian speech. And in that case, you do address your classmates. And even if we look at really popular valedictorian speeches, even if it's something as far as someone representing a graduating class in university or college, even those speeches specifically, humor is often used. I'm not saying everyone has to use humor within their speeches, but it goes to show that when you do bring something like humor into a speech, it makes it a little bit less formal, almost informal, but not completely, just a little bit less formal. And the reason this does kind of work out better is because you're trying to maintain a personal connection, whether it be with your peers, your teachers, or even whoever is reading the speech after. But most importantly, you are representing your classmates. So that's why, in general, I'm just explaining this to everyone. That's why a valedictorian speech is much better if you kind of balance out being formal as well as being personal. Okay. So yeah, that was about it. That last point was kind of out to everyone just to make sure everyone had a better understanding of how to maintain different tones for different pieces of writing. But Liam, do you have any questions about the provided feedback that I specifically went over with you?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. No worries. Okay, so the next activity we're taking a look at is this poetry interpretation activity, where you're going to be identifying two literary devices that were used in the poem. You're going to be talking about the main idea of the poem, and then you will also identify a major theme from the poem and use examples to explain. It is really a three-part activity. That is why this is 15 minutes long. You can almost consider it as 5 minutes per addressing each part to this question. I'm just going to write here as well. Use examples to explain. So for both of them, I would want examples to explain and identify. Even when you identify the two literary devices that were used in the poem, I also want to write explain why they were effective. Okay, just wanted to add in those details, but yeah, think of this almost as three sets of questions. First, you identify identify any two literary devices that were used in the poem and explain why they were effective. Second, you talk about what the main idea of the poem is and you use examples to explain. So the main idea and theme are easy to get confused, but they're not the same thing. Consider the main idea to be the message behind the poem, the main purpose of the poem. You're kind of trying to just interpret the poem. But when you're talking about a theme is usually a one or two word idea that is present throughout the poem. A poem can have a theme about death, but can completely be about loving those that are close to you. That could be the main message, but one of the themes found in the poem could be death. Just wanted to give an example of the difference between both. But let's go ahead and get into the poem first. I know this one's a little bit on the lower quality, but when it's full screen, it shouldn't be too bad. This poem is titled Alone, and it's written by Edgar Allan Poe. Would anyone like to volunteer to go ahead and read the poem? Because I feel like it's just going to be difficult to split this up and have everyone read part by part. So, would anyone like to volunteer? Otherwise, I'm just going to randomly call upon one of you. Okay, that's fine. Kevin, can you go ahead and please read the poem Alone? Kevin, can you please go ahead and read the poem?
Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. From childhood's hour I've not been, as others were have not seen, as others saw I could not bring. My passions from a common spring, from the same source I have not taken, my sorrow I could not awaken, my heart to joy at the same tone, and all I loved alone. Then in my childhood, in the dawn of most stormy life was strong. Every death of good and ill, the mystery was blinding me still, from the torrent or the fountain, from the river or the mountain. From the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form when the rest of him was through, of a demon in my view.
Okay, great. So this poem really does rely a lot on symbolism and imagery. So I would want everyone to keep that in mind. In a way, those are two literary devices right there. You can feel free to use anything other than imagery because imagery, I mean, if you really have to, you can use that as one of them as well, but it's a little bit more on the obvious side. But again, really try to read deep in between the lines of the poem. I just want to read it through one more time as well, just so everyone kind of hears it just one more time before we get into the interpretation and overall explanation activity. Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. From childhood's hour, I have not been. As others were, I have not seen. As others saw, I could not bring. My passions from a common spring, from the same source I have not taken. My sorrow I could not awaken. My heart to joy at the same tone, and all I loved alone. Then in my childhood, in the in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill, the mystery which binds me still, from the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. Okay, so this is really much more on the complicated side. I'm not going to lie and be like, this is really easy to understand, but that's exactly why we're spending 15 minutes. And realistically speaking, other than the literary devices, there really is no wrong answers. Maybe even theme, there is a possibility to be wrong or right. But when we're talking about the main idea of the poem, there really is no wrong answers. So it's primarily the literary devices where you have to make sure you pick two good literary devices that you notice. You explain its purpose, why it's significant, and then you could go on with the rest of the activity, where you would go on to talk about the main idea of the poem and use examples to explain. And then finally, you would identify a major theme from the poem and again use examples to explain that as well. So right now the time is 7:55. We'll work on this activity until 8:10. That's exactly 15 minutes from now. I'll also be checking in halfway through the activity to make sure everything is going well. I'll be staying on this slide right now so everyone is able to see the poem itself. And before we get started, does anyone have any questions about the poem or the activity?
This is unrelated, but I think when I was reading it, did I press the mute button?
No. We were able to hear you. I only reread it because I just wanted to reread it myself one more time just to make sure everyone was able to slowly hear the poem, just because I feel like it might require two reads. But we heard you fine. No worries, Kevin.
Okay.
All right, great. Okay, so yeah, 7:55. We'll work on this until 8:10. If anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to ask me. Okay, just wanted to give a reminder that we have 8 minutes until we take up this activity. Also wanted to check in to see if anyone has any questions. All right. Again, 8 more minutes. If anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to ask me. Okay, Liam, can you go ahead and read your response? And great job with the structure as well.
I don't think I wrote that.
Oh, okay, Alex, I think maybe that was you.
Oh wait, sorry, that's my bad, Leo.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, you could just go ahead and paste it onto your slide, and then you could proceed with reading it.
So do I read it?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. So two literary devices he used was imagery and repetition. He used strong images like from the red cliff off the mountain and from the thunder and storm. Really helped the readers picture like what he felt. And repetition, he used the word in a lot, like I have not been as others